Why the hell you dressed like me anyway? I ain't paying you to be Michael Myers. I'm playing Michael Myers. If them kids come around and see us dressed up in the same shit, you're gonna ruin the whole effect.
Boogeyman, 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 boogeyman.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I am Cyborg, as always, joined by Temp, and we are reviewing Halloween Resurrection this time, the 8th entry in the franchise, and there's only 2 more beyond the one that is releasing the new one, 2018. So, let's just jump right in. Halloween Resurrection is a direct follow-up to Halloween H2O, which we reviewed last time, and if you haven't reviewed, or if you haven't gone and tuned into the previous reviews that we've done, we've reviewed the entire series up until this point, so definitely go check those out and enjoy, and you'll see what we rated each film as we've gone along. So, Halloween Resurrection, the one with Busta Rhymes.
Indeed.
That's pretty much how it's known. So, I don't have a whole lot of notes on this one, honestly. About half the notes that I usually do. And yeah, so this one's gonna be pretty loose, much like Halloween 6 was in Halloween H2O to a degree. So we'll kind of bounce around a lot. Not a whole lot of points I specifically want to point out. Just a discussion on the film for the most part is probably how this is going to go down. Yeah, so starting off, we get an explanation why Laurie Strode is actually locked up. And it's been 3 years since Halloween H2O. And she's locked up into a mental institution or an insane asylum, whatever. And yeah, it turns out the explanation, as we alluded to in the last one, where she cut the head off seemingly of Michael Myers after driving the van with him in the body bag, and he got trapped up against a tree. He's reaching out to her, and he's reaching for his mask, like surprised that he's wearing it. She cuts his head off with an axe, and that's where we leave off with H2O. So in this one, they explain it that, well, it actually wasn't Michael Myers. It was a like a paramedic, and Michael switched with him, broke his larynx, and so that's why he couldn't talk. Like the guy that he switched with couldn't talk, and yeah, that's supposed to explain why he's reaching at his mask and reaching out to her, and so on and so forth. But yeah, so Michael got away. He did the old switcheroo. Thoughts on that twist?
They show the footage in flashback in the beginning of Resurrection to kind of contrast, compare, and to me, I mean, there's no like interview confirmation of this, but it seems fairly obvious that it was clearly meant to be not Michael. Even without knowing that they were going to make Halloween Busta Rhymes, it's very obvious that was not Michael in retrospect, which sucks for Jamie Lee Curtis because she very much wanted that to be the final conclusion.
Right.
And it was very obvious in the script they had no intention of that. Why else would he touch his mask? Does Michael Myers not know he has a mask on? The only reasonable explanation is that it was never Michael. Even Halloween 8 aside, and within the context of Halloween 7, it's very clearly not Michael Myers, which really, really hurts that movie. That takes a lot of merit out of Halloween H2O 20 years later. So that's I mean, to be honest with you, if we're looking at the beginning in a vacuum, it was good. Jamie Lee Curtis was good. The handing over the knife to the mental patient was clever. Michael looks okay.
Hold on. Let's back up a little bit here. So
yeah, sure.
How this goes down is Jamie Lee Curtis is kept into this asylum or institution because she essentially murdered a man with a family that was innocent. And yeah, so she's held up here. She's not taking her pills. They think she's just docile. She hasn't spoken in 3 years, but she's always staring out the window, waiting for Michael, presumably. And she ends up seeing Michael, but she's not sure if it's actually him or not. Anyways, Michael breaks in or sneaks in, whatever, and kills 2 of the police officers. I do think it's a little odd that when one of them gets killed and the other one's searching, and he goes up and finds the other one's head in there, Like, his body was literally right next to the guy. Like, how did he not? I mean, I know we've had moments in the series where their peripheral vision is awful, like their
He
awareness
would
of
have
what's around
smelt
them.
it.
No, I
He would
know.
have smelt a puddle of fucking blood.
There's nothing. Like, he was literally like the guy's like legs were less than a foot away from him. I don't know. It's just, and it wasn't like this dark area either. It was lit. So, fam.
Plus,
But
how did Michael find the time to put all that, to cut off his head and put it in the wash, all at the fucking, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I'll give the timing a pass. It's just like, come on, you're really insulting the intelligence when the guy he's tripping over the body that's right next to him that whole time as if he didn't. Yeah, I don't know. That was
The
a little
entire
silly.
room would have smelled like copper and almonds. It would have been very
Oh,
obvious
gosh.
there was a lot of blood going on in that room. I
Yeah.
don't.
So, anyways, and we did see Michael do where he lowers himself by one hand from the pipes above, like we saw in H2O. So I thought that was a neat,
That was nice. I
continuation.
agree.
So
Anytime I see something like out of the norm with Michael, I like it a lot. Almost always, not always, but almost always.
I just like when they repeatedly do things with him. I like when they build a character trait and they follow up with it in later films. To me, that's what I look for in a character. When you have iconic things that the character's known for and then they continually do it, those are establishing character traits and mannerisms of this character. That's kind of been my complaint over some of the other versions of Michael that walk really slow or carry a knife a certain, it's that kind of stuff that bothers me most about the character, or just the way he's shot or the filming. And I'll get into that later on how this film is basically shows itself or shows Michael and presents him. But anyways, continuing along. So introduced a little earlier from that was a guy that is obsessed with serial killers. He knows all the facts about them. He pretends like he's them, something like that. He's obsessed with them, and he was out, but then they put him back in. So that's who they thought this was, but it ended up being Michael. So he kills both the officers. Then he's coming for Laurie. He goes to Laurie's bed and he's about to, stab it, which was another kind of fun little callback to Halloween 2 when he goes to stab the bed and she's not actually in there. So he's about to stab the bed and Laurie hits him. So she was completely prepared for him. And then Michael gives chase as Laurie's going up to the roof. And she seemingly has a trap because she puts her like a hospital uniform kind of hanging on the edge of the building there to make it look like she jumped or she's hanging off or something. So Michael goes to look, and then she presses a button on a trap, basically like the old rope trap where she hangs him upside down by his foot. And so this is where she's going to get her revenge, and I like this part, but then it gets really silly once again because, as you mentioned before, they clearly... You said, why would he reach for his mask? Well, he does that in this one too, so that's the part that kind of stuck out to me of if that's the logic of they didn't plan for that to be Michael in the last one because he's reaching for his mask. Well, he does it again here. He's like, as he's hanging upside down, and Michael didn't know what the paramedic did. He didn't know how that guy operated, so it's not like he knew. It's not like he was purposely doing this to... I don't know. I don't know the logic here because he didn't know what the guy did in that specific moment.
Well, I don't know about that because what probably happened is after she cut that poor dude's head off, she probably gave a statement, and I think police reports are public record. I think, or if not, I mean, he breaks into file cabinets like all the time. He's so good at it. So I think, like if she gave her statement, then it's plausible that he may have known about that, but I don't know. You're right. I mean, I'm speculating here. I have no clue. He likes such
I mean, either way, it's silly for Laurie to do what she does next. I get it. I get what they're reasoning for. She's been traumatized. She killed an innocent person, and she wants to be absolutely sure. So while she has him dead to rights, hanging upside down from this rope trap on the roof of this building, and Michael's dropped his knife already. So he's, reaching for his mask and then kind of just dangling there. She grabs the knife. She's going to finish him off, but she was going to go cut the cord, basically dropping him from the roof to kill him. And she hesitates. She needs to know for sure because she's having flashbacks, PTSD essentially. She doesn't want to make the same mistake twice. But it's like, logic-wise, he was coming to kill you. You saw him at a knife at your bedside to kill you. Like, this was not a moment where somebody just came out of a body bag in your... I don't know. It's just, for me, I get what they were going. They're trying to set up this, but it makes her look a little dumb, I guess. Like a fool. Like, he was clearly Michael there. Like, that should not have been in question. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's for the plot. I didn't like it. I think she gave a good performance, but
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And the Laurie scenes are a complete total departure from the rest of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing else in this movie is like this. And I did some research on it too, and she wasn't happy with it either. But what's up?
Yeah, I think from my understanding, I think she only did this movie just to be done with it. Like, I think she wanted to be done with the franchise. She probably didn't like the whole direction of what they were taking anyways. They clearly were trying to make this, milking it once again. The whole idea of H2O was to wipe the slate clean, so to speak, and finish it out right, to give, a more faithful sequel to the Laurie story and give resolution there than Halloween 2 did, and then the subsequent sequels. But by going the resurrection route, you completely, once again, just shit the bed. Like, it just undoes what you just did.
Yeah, and there's no... God, we're heading into our next reset, which I'm for. I'm not against the new reset. It's a shame this has to happen at all.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I feel bad because what they did to Jamie, they now did to Laurie. It's like, do they just hate their protagonist? I don't get it.
I think they know. I think they know better now. Talking about the new movie, and we're obviously gonna keep that to a minimum for now. But I think they know better now what they're doing. But you do raise a good point that even if the new movie's great, that it is at least worth being concerned that even if it's great, are the sequels to that going to be great? Like H2O was a decent, follow up to kind of reset, like you said. But then when you immediately shit the bed with a sequel to H2O because you want to keep continuing the story, you want more money, etc., and then you immediately drop in quality or you take this type of direction and shoot yourself in the foot once again, I would hope they're not going to do that with the new one. Like, if you make the new one good, you better only make a sequel to that if you have just an absolute fantastic idea, which this was clearly not that. I don't think this was meant to be a fantastic idea. I think this was clearly, we want more money,
And it worked. This movie was a financial success, unfortunately. So.
I can believe it. I mean, horror fans, or just fans in general, like, these iconic franchises are they are what they are for a reason, because they have diehard fans that will continually go out and see it, and that's for better or worse. I mean, I don't want to see... If I really love a series, I don't want it to end, but I also don't want it to just continually get worse and worse either. So there's definitely a fine line there, but, we are a faithful, loyal bunch to the characters that we enjoy. Anyways, so Laurie has to be sure, so she goes up to basically pull his mask off. Michael takes this opportunity to grab her. They tumble over the side of the building. They're hanging down from the side of the building, and in this moment, he stabs Laurie in the back, and this is her dying breath, so to speak. She gives him a kiss, says, "I'll see you in hell," and then she drops from the building and is dead. So, yeah, Laurie is dead. Thoughts on that? And the way it was presented.
I'm glad, because if the movie was just Laurie Strode walking through a reality TV show, that would have been really tough for me to watch. So I think, given the rest of the movie and given the creative talent behind it, I would rather her have not have been in the movie at all. But if it's got to happen, I'm glad her performance was good. I'm glad she took it seriously. Well, she didn't have to. I think she tried to break contract like weeks before filming. She tried really hard to get out of this. So I feel really bad for her. And that's all I'm going to think about when I watch it. But she did a good job, and that's all you can really say about it.
It also gives you a shining light, I guess, if anything, of the new one. Not to go back to it too much here, but if she liked she's obviously jaded at this point. When she gets to this movie, and like you said, she tried to get out because she did not like what was happening. For her to come back, same with John Carpenter, those are two people that didn't want anything to do with the series anymore. For the script to win them over, that's telling as it is. So that's pretty promising for that. And it's nice if it really does give her, resolution to the franchise. It's best to go out on a high note. So I do hope.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think that's actually a bigger part. I think the first part is true. I don't think she would have done it if she didn't like the talent behind the script.
Right.
But I think a bigger part is she didn't want the end of the legacy to be Halloween Resurrection.
Yeah.
It was a way to undo history. So yes,
Exactly.
I think they're both true, but I think the latter is definitely more true than the other.
Right. My personal thoughts on this, I did not like the way this was done. It's kind of like Jamie. Obviously, Jamie's exit to the series, or her writing off of her character, was, 10 times worse than this and more vile and just disgusting. But this just felt so like an afterthought. Like it was like, oh, we got to get this out of the way in the first, 6 minutes of the film, and then we can move on to the film we wanted to make, which is far inferior. But even this, just the way it was handled, it makes her character look a bit silly and foolish. And yeah, I mean, Laurie's the type of character we want to win. Like, it's not often in these big franchises that you really, really, really feel connected to a character, or that you want to see them truly succeed and rise up. It's always great when that happens, especially if they can keep that going through multiple films. But Laurie's somebody that you want to see a happy ending. Same with Jamie. It's like you want them to move on with their life and live their life and, go on beyond this tragedy. To have her ultimately killed by Michael after all of this time, to me, just feels underwhelming. I don't know. I didn't care for it. I didn't care the way it was set up. I just didn't like the way they portrayed her character here. She just didn't seem intelligent like I expect. So, especially after H2O, where she was so on the offensive, I guess. She was here as well, but she was clearly not mentally there, I guess. She had the trauma and but I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. I just was not a fan of it.
I feel extra bad for Jamie, the character, not Danielle Harris. Because like at least Jamie Lee Curtis has enough weight in the industry to be like, no, if you're gonna put my character in this shitty movie, you're gonna do it right. Poor Danielle Harris didn't have any pull. Like, imagine if like they make Halloween Resurrection and like they just tell Jamie Lee Curtis to walk off. They like recast her with like Jane Lynch, and she
Right.
gets like killed in her sleep. Like, that would just be the worst.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, that would have been so bad. Jamie got recasted, rewritten as an incest victim, and then got killed in like 15 minutes of total screen time. It was so bad what they did to Jamie. At least Jamie Lee Curtis is like, at least she has enough like weight to leave an impact and not
Sure.
get bullied by the producers. So
Yeah, she was clearly treated with more respect than Danielle Harris as Jamie was, as we talked about in the Halloween 6 review, how she essentially got pretty well screwed over in that whole ordeal, spending money, getting emancipated, all to play a character that she didn't end up getting to finish out. And on top of that, her character was just pretty well, horrible direction. But yeah, so I agree with you. I agree with that. Anyways, continuing on with the movie here. So we get, as Michael's leaving, as you said before, he passes by the guy that's the psychopath obsessed with serial killers, knows all about him. He recognizes Michael Myers. He starts spouting off, his past and his record, etc. He hands the knife to the psychopath to essentially frame, I would imagine, to frame him, basically.
Yeah,
to
that's what I got as well.
pass off the blame to him, so it's less like nobody's gonna think Michael's still out there. And I do have one issue with that, in that we do know there's cameras in this facility. We don't ever see Michael destroy said cameras, so that might contradict that a bit. I mean, it could be possible that he does it anyways, but it seemed pretty hands the knife off and I'm out of here type of thing. But I mean, that's a minor nitpick. I'm not gonna crap on the movie.
He was
for that
writing
or
a
anything.
scene where it shows Michael walking out of the hospital with a giant box of tapes. He's got all these tapes in the box.
I'm just
Puts
saying.
them in his trunk, yeah.
We know for sure he showed up in camera shots down when he
Yeah.
was in the tunnels and whatnot. So clearly he's there, and unless unless he took off the rest of his costume and gave it to the psychopath, they're clearly gonna know somebody else was there. But regardless, like I said, that's just a minor thing I
He
noted.
could have sabotaged. If the security guard who was monitoring the cameras was killed, he in theory could have messed with the
Yeah,
footage.
it's
but who
possible.
knows?
It's possible. Regardless, very minor. Like I said, it's not doesn't really detract from the film. We got plenty of other stuff to go on with that. So this is where my notes really, like, I've already gone through about half of my notes. we're
Yeah.
only in the first 8 minutes of the movie, so I don't have a whole lot left for the rest of it, other than a few little minor things. The next thing I have here, well, we get introduced to Busta Rhymes. He's a TV reality Danger Vision or whatever host. So they are setting up a found footage reality TV show kind of feel. Not really found footage, but reality TV show where they're bringing in all these people to explore the Michael Myers, or the Myers house. And they essentially set up all of this stuff for them to be spooked. And that's kind of the plot of the film, or the setup of the film. But as we know, Michael's really alive, so they are all going to have to deal with that as they go along. One note I have here is that, man, Busta Rhymes has just a ginormous mouth. Look at this picture. That is
yeah.
from the movie, and that's like when you first see him, and I was like, man, that is a mouth on that guy. That takes up half his head.
It's like Jim Carrey from The Mask almost.
Yeah. I mean, not like trying to tear the guy down or anything. He's good, but
He's like the best part of the movie. Like if they had recast him as like a generic ass set director, God, this movie would have been so much worse. Like when he's on screen, at least I was having fun. Once he left the screen, I was just like, oh man.
yeah. I mean, I agree to an extent. There are certain scenes I do like him in, but there's also a lot of scenes where I'm like, oh gosh, he's not helping the matters in a lot of the scenes, because just, man, the thing I noted most about this entire film, save for that intro, is just, it is just filled with characters that are not interesting at all. I don't remember any of their names other than Deckard, who's the kid, watching from the party that's going on, that's watching the reality TV show on his computer, and he's trying to help out one of the, the final girl by sending her messages. Other than that, I don't remember their other names. I seriously do not remember their names. You have the final girl who screams and breaks glass with her scream. You have the, oh geez, you got the rookie of the year kid from the movie, the baseball movie, where he breaks his arm and
He looked familiar.
he can pitch really fast. Yeah, that's all I recognize him from. He's from,
That was bothering me the whole movie. I'm like, who is that guy?
yeah, I just remember that. Yeah, he plays, I don't even remember, this is Cleveland Indians or something? I might be thinking
Something
Major
like that.
League.
Daniel
Either way.
Stern movie. It's great.
Yeah, so there's that guy. there's the guy that smells like the spices, and he's like, oh, the fennel sound. Which, by the way, like, at the moment I'm like, why would there be fresh fennel in the house? Like, is Michael seriously like making lasagnas? Because I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like that, we've talked about Michael in like funny positions, being like a cult member's lackey, or just go floating down the river with a life vest on underneath his coveralls. But like him, like just creating a lasagna, cooking it up. But it's like, I don't know, like that's hard.
It's hard not to picture him at a Kroger's. Is like, look at the spices. He picks one out, sniffs it, and then shakes his head back.
Yeah, he cocks his head to like try and
He waves his hand a bit.
He's still doing his Michael Myers mannerisms as he's picking these things out. So I was just like, that's odd. Yeah, and fennel's that seed that I really don't like that I told you about one time. Like, just a very strong
the
flavor.
devil's seed. I forgot about that.
But yeah, so he notices the fennel like smells fresh because he expected it to smell like 40 years old or whatever. And yeah, so and then later it's revealed that a lot of stuff has been planted by Busta Rhymes and the Danger Television people to essentially set up stuff. So I could understand, that doesn't really make sense why it would be fresh. Like, why would they plant that specifically? But maybe, I don't know. It still doesn't make sense to me. Why is there fresh fennel in this house? So maybe it was there to like scare him or something, like to make him question things. But even then, it's silly. It's just really silly. And I like to think Michael Myers is making lasagnas. So
That'd be cool. He has a sophisticated palate. That'd be fun.
I'm assuming the meat in the lasagna is from rats, because we do see later that he's been eating rats. So that's fun, I guess. Hey, no dogs were hurt in this movie, so that's always good.
No, that's true. Yeah.
It's been a couple movies since he's laid off the dogs since Halloween 5, so that's good. I'm trying to think of anything else that, like I said, super just not a whole lot to point out here. Characters just aren't interesting. Like I said, I was trying to remember the other ones. So there was that guy, and then there was blonde-haired girl. Then there was redheaded girl that shows the boobs and has like the minor sex scene.
That girl got on my man. Like, she's not even that. Like, she's not a bad actress, but they were clearly trying to write up this snotty liberal arts major, and just God, there's a scene where the douchebag guy, although he kind of redeemed himself a little bit throughout the movie, but he starts out as a complete douchebag. He's like, say something smart, and she goes, "Existence precedes essence," and I'm just like, ugh. Because like that's my degree. I have a bachelor's in philosophy, and that's like the most like douchey, snotty, like postmodern shit thing you could have possibly said. First of all, it's false, by the way. But just like, oh god. And because most people don't learn philosophy from a philosophy teacher, they learn it from their English teachers. So that was like the most poster boy, like shitty philosophy thing they could have possibly said. So that was like a knife in my balls. Other than that, she was whatever. It's kind of weird. The douchebag who like you're supposed to really not like because he's like a secret sex fiend. He's super creepy. He's constantly in our. He actually ended up being like the rational, sound mind in the group by the end of the movie, and I was really surprised by that. Well, the two main characters who you think are going to be like your brigade, who's going to kind of like follow the final girl to the very end, they just get stoned and die.
Yeah, the guy, the fennel guy, and the blonde girl. So
yes, continue.
I was just saying, I was just trying to run through them all. There's the guy that gets his head crushed. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of anything that stands out to mention here. They all, I mean, it's not really a surprise. They all get killed off one by one, essentially, and other than the final girl. And so as we go along, they start to get a little bit more in, like, they're trying to figure out what's going on, like try to solve the mysteries. They come across all sorts of things. They think like there's a bunch of dead bodies stored in the wall, but then they realize there's a Made in Taiwan sticker on one of it, which I thought was kind of funny. And yeah, and then we have probably the best scene of the movie, my favorite personal scene, is we see Michael, or who we think is Michael, start walking, and he's like walking slowly, trying to be hidden, and he's walking through one of the hallways or whatever, and then all of a sudden we see Michael walk behind him. So we see two Michaels, and then all of a sudden we realize, okay, one's Busta Rhymes. He turns around, he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then so Busta Rhymes starts basically berating and talking down Michael. He even like pushes him in the forehead. He's like, get it together. And Michael's just taking this entire thing, not doing anything. So Busta Rhymes is telling him, go with Tyra Banks or whatever. And I think that's who that was, Tyra Banks, and
Yes.
go. He's like, she's in here, you're supposed to be with her. He just said, he like totally gets her killed, by the way. Like, I don't know if you caught on to that, but
No, I saw the body later.
yeah, he's like, she's in here, you're supposed to be with her. I even left the back door unlocked for you. Like, he tells him everything. And then later we find out she was indeed killed, because Michael does listen to what he says completely and then just leaves, presumably to go kill her. So I thought that was kind of funny. That was the only that's my favorite scene in the movie. It's just Busta Rhymes just going crazy in a Michael outfit, and his mask definitely looked like cheaper than Michael's mask. I thought was kind of funny. So, but yeah, I guess we can run through the rest of here. So they all get killed off one by one, and the people at the party that are watching, they all think it's just a joke, or they think it's acting, they think it's all fake, of course, but then they start to get a little scared later on towards the end when it's just a couple people left now, and Deckard's trying to help her out by telling her where Michael was at, and she escapes out the window and then goes into another room. So this is where the movie was all right, when it's just her left and she's trying to get away from Michael. I thought that's when it was somewhat, like, not great, not good, but at this point I was like, okay, I like some of the little things they're doing here. But it also leads to one of my bigger issues with the film that I'll get to. But finishing out basically what happens here. So Deckard helps her out throughout most of this, kind of navigating her through the house to stay away from Michael. And Busta Rhymes comes back at the end because she goes to where Tyra Banks is at after Busta Rhymes essentially looks like he gets killed by Michael, but he shows up in the final act there in the climax to help her out. And then he essentially saves her. So Busta Rhymes is the savior here because he fights Michael off of her while she's essentially just chilling on the sideline, and he electrocutes Michael. Whole thing catches on fire. End movie. We think Michael's dead. She wants to be sure. She looks at the mask. Everything looks dead. So then, he goes to the morgue, and then, surprise, he's not dead. He opens his eyes. But I don't know exactly how they're going to follow this one up. Well, we do, but, Anyways, so, which is nothing at all. So. But, that's the movie. I mean, like I said, there's not a whole lot else to... I mean, we can point out a little tidbits, I'm sure, but... I'll get into my first kind of issue with the film, other than just the fact that it was boring and that it was like, there's Jason X fun. Jason X has a lot of fun moments. I don't feel like that's this movie. I feel like this is first of all, it's so odd seeing Michael Myers interact with Busta Rhymes. It's just like such a different character. It's just really odd. But I just my biggest issue with the film is, and I've mentioned this in previous movies, but man, the suspense and the way they shoot things with Michael are just, I don't know who's making these films, like who's shooting them and who's calling the shots and how they set up these shots, what director it was, but to me, it's just, they don't know how to make Michael a suspenseful character. They don't. I've said several times, have him in the background without telling us he's there. Have us wonder, when is he gonna pop up next, and have your eyes always looking around. Every time you see a scene, look around to see if Michael's there. have the characters in a room for 20 seconds and you realize it takes you several seconds till you realize, oh, Michael's been in the corner the entire time, or he fades in type of thing, out of focus into focus. Like, to me, that's how you do the character right. And this is just the complete opposite. So many times they focus on Michael. Like, as he's moving around the house, oh, here he is walking through this doorway, here he is walking through this hallway, here he is doing this, here he is doing that. And it's like, no, keep the focus on the characters. As uninteresting as they are, keep the focus on them. And then when they're searching around a closet, oh, Michael happened to be in that closet, or he's in the corner watching them rummage through the closet. Like, that's how you do it, and they just don't do that. Like, there is no suspense in this movie. There's so many times where they show you where Michael's at. This should be him popping up out of nowhere, or just him watching and just have that creepy factor, and they just don't. I don't know. It frustrates me. I've mentioned it several times now. It bothers me. It's just missing all of the classic shots that I associate with Michael. Oh, yeah, and one other thought on Michael is, I don't know why, but it was earlier on in the film with the Laurie stuff, but like when after he slashes at her bed and she knocks him out real quick and then runs away, when he's going up to the rooftop, man, does his hair on that mask is poofed out like crazy. Looked really silly. But anyways, go ahead. Thoughts on any of that, or just take it in a different direction, whatever you got.
This movie was rough. Gosh, this was another really difficult one.
This is the most difficult one, I would say. Like, I just as much as they really like bothered me with some of the directions they took. This one doesn't bother me with the direction they took. This one just bothers me because it's boring. It's just, the characters are the least interesting in any of the films so far, I think.
It feels very much like what it is, which is a trashy parody movie to capitalize on whatever was left of the Halloween franchise. And that's what it feels like when you're watching it, which, to be honest with you, I may have been a little forgiving of if they did it like Jason X. I really like Jason X. That's actually one of my favorite predators.
Sure.
But yeah, just it's not funny, and it takes itself way too seriously until it doesn't, and then when it does, it just feels out of nowhere. And even then, it's not enough to save the movie. It's actually very little. Like, the parts of this movie that feel like parody are like less than like 5 minutes of footage. It's a very small amount. For the most part, this movie is about a bunch of poor college students trying to participate in this mystery game, which is like this live. It's not interesting. And there's other little things that bothered me, like that blonde actress who played the best friend. I hate when they do this in the movies. They purposely write a character who is annoying. They write the character to be grating, and they do it to make the main character look more interesting, look more together, and more likable. Well, what you're doing is, well, yes, go on.
I was just going to say real quick, I also think they do that because at this point in the franchise, you're almost rooting for Michael with a lot of this. So they intentionally put in a character that you want to see die. It's one of those you clap in the theater type of moments because finally the douchey character or the annoying character got it. But continue.
It's such a shame, too, because what happens is these people get perceived as bad actors, and for me it's really unfair, because if they don't act shitty enough, the director says cut and is like, no, be sluttier, be dumber, be more annoying, because you're going to die, and we need the audience to like you said, to cheer for that, and we need the final girl to look like a badass. So that poor woman, she probably isn't that bad of an actor, but they wrote her to be annoying for whatever reason. I hate that, and I never saw this girl ever again, at least that I know of. I don't even think Busta Rhymes got a movie after this. I don't think he ever did anything really Hollywood related after this that I know of. But Busta Rhymes was okay. I actually do like the final girl. I mean, there's really nothing to say about her, but I did appreciate the fact that she didn't want to do it, and she's like the only. I mean, maybe it's victory by relativity. She's the most interesting person of the cast, which is Busta Rhymes and a bunch of other generic people. But
she didn't have competition. She won by default. She won because she showed up. But yeah, no, I agree that she wasn't bad. She Does she even compare to Jamie or Laurie? Absolutely
No.
not. Like, not even remotely in their level or in their same ballpark or league. But she wasn't. Yeah, she was easily the least offensive character in there, or just the least uninteresting character in there. So, yeah, I didn't
You'll
mind
notice
that.
she's not even in most of the scenes. Like when they show the first half of the movie, where they're just exploring the house. She's not even in most of those scenes. Most of the
Right.
time, she's by herself, like reading. She doesn't really even interact with the rest of the cast much after they go into the Myers house. So I just, yeah, she was okay for what she did her best. I do give her props for that. Busta Rhymes was funny, and to feel anything while watching this movie is such a bonus. So, I mean, it's Busta Rhymes. It's not his fault that the movie's shitty. Like, they offered him a movie role and he took it. Like, I can't fault him for that. So, he did what he could for his experience. And I give him, like, I'll give my movie score later, obviously, but I give Busta Rhymes an A. Like, for someone who hasn't done movies
I don't
before,
know,
he
man.
was charismatic. He felt sincere. He never felt unnatural in front of the camera. So props for that. And I had fun. Like when he was doing stupid shit. Like so yeah, I liked him, but
I
the
don't
rest
know,
of the movie
man.
was just dull and just colorless and boring and not enjoyable or offensive. Like what they did to Laurie, or that stupid fucking existence precedes essence line. Just stuff like that just really stabbed into my chest. But that's really all I got to say about it. I was so glad when this movie was up.
I I found him more annoying probably than you did. Like the karate noises, as silly as that is, and I can understand why that's funny, but maybe to me that's just a step too far. Like, I get that this is supposed to just be more of a fun movie, but it's not. They don't capture that, and if anything, he sticks out like a sore thumb, because I get that they were going for a more comedic type of approach with some of this, or to be a parody of itself, but I feel like they fail with that with pretty much the rest of the film. So to have Busta Rhymes be the only character that's going to that lengths to be silly, that's when it's just like he seems like the biggest standout in this film, in a like a this one does not, this one is not like the others type of way. Like, he just doesn't, like, don't get me wrong, like I said, I like the dual Michael scene. I thought that was great. I like when he shows up and like pulls the main girl, like he grabs her real quick and he's like, we got to get the fuck out of here, when he realizes that everybody's actually dying and that Michael's alive. And then he explains, I had no idea. I like that he's apologizing and explaining that he had no idea that this is a thing. um, and I even like at the end when he, his lines, the trick or treat motherfucker, and shit like that. I thought that was good. It's just I don't know, like the karate stuff was over the top. When he's in the early film, or early part of the film, when he's getting everybody together, I thought he was really obnoxious. Yeah, I don't know, dude. It was 50-50 with him, in my opinion. Whereas all the other characters were just meh. So it's like he wins by default once again, in the sense of, yeah, he had probably the most enjoyable parts of the film, but he also, to me, had some of the most grating stuff, like obnoxious wise. But
I
yeah,
just feel like my response to that is if you take out the karate kicks, all you have left is meh. And I would just turn the movie off at the end, just feeling hollow and empty and soulless. But at least the kicks made me feel something. This movie is so droll. It is so hard to watch. So okay, I
maybe.
mean, I get where you're coming from, but I disagree. I think at least I felt something watching that, and that's so important to a movie, good or
Right.
bad.
Yeah, I think we're on the same wavelength, and we have an agreement there. But yeah, I think you're more, he's kind of like at least giving you something to,
Yeah.
like, something entertaining wise, whereas to me it's like you've already bored me to death, and now you're just, it's almost like salt on the wounds when you just make a character that obnoxious. It's, I get the entertainment factor, but then it's like you're further taking this in the direction I don't want this to go down. I don't want this to become slapstick, let's do crane kicks on Michael type of thing. I really like there is a place for that. Don't get me wrong, but it's like this came from H2O. Like we didn't need to go down this direction. We didn't need to go this way. But I understand you're more like we're here now, so at least let's try and make the best out of it in this I don't know.
I think what happened is the movie screened really poorly, big surprise, and everyone's like, your fucking Halloween reality TV movie, it's dumb and boring. And they're like, okay, well, they already think it's dumb and boring. We might as well just own it. And then they reshot Karate Kicks. That's what I'm guessing happened. That's my assumption, at least. But I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Another problem I have with him is he just has no respect for Ben Tramer. And, I can't like any character that dresses up as Michael and thinks that that's like a good idea. So
that's true. No, very disrespectful.
I mean, I think that should drop his score down to a B+ at the least. I mean,
I would have given him like an S+ if he got hit by a car and caught on fire. Like that would have been.
No, if a car drove into the into the Myers house,
the basement,
at any point, like it just busts through the wall, carries one of the kids into like another car somehow, like it carries him out of the whatever. He crashes into a brick wall and then catches on fire and explodes, and then that same police officer, in his older state, 40 years later, stumbles out of the car and he says he came out of nowhere. Like that to me would have definitely been one of those moments where I'm like,
this is the end of the movie, so it would have been like the second floor.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. To me, that is so random that I could have got on board with that. Like
yes,
I
would have laughed very hard.
Like that to me, I'm like, okay, I get it now. Like I got it. Like to me, that would have made it better, but I don't know, the karate stuff, but regardless.
Also, a lot of Loomis sneak ups in this movie. From just in the beginning, like everyone's doing the Loomis sneak.
Yeah.
They're like, "Hey, you scared me." Like, why? Okay, so that was in the movie, but I think that's all I got. I don't.
We can move on to final like opinions here and scoring, but yeah, I don't have anything else. I went through all my notes and talked about everything there was to talk about. It's just can't think of anything else worth noting. We covered the Laurie stuff, which was granted the thing that deserved the most time there, and Busta Rhymes and the other characters that were just kind of meh. So yeah, I think that's that. So anyways, I guess one more thing is, it's odd that they decided to show breast in this one after they haven't in H2O or in because I don't think Halloween 6 had them either. I could be wrong, or Halloween 5 or 4. I don't know.
No, I don't think. I think 2 was the last one with or maybe 3.
Yeah.
3 was the last one.
So it's like, not that I'm complaining. Don't get me wrong. It's just odd, I guess. They're almost going to. It's like now they really have to rely on the smut. Not like they're really just they're at the bottom of the barrel now. And whereas those things in a better film are a good thing in my opinion, but in this film it's like now you can tell they're getting just desperate again. So I don't even know what this was
in this movie. Was it the redhead?
It was the redhead when they're downstairs fooling around right before all the like fake bodies fall out of the wall.
I remember the top coming off, but I don't remember a tit shot.
Yeah, you get a couple. They're brief, but she puts her shirt back on. You see him there, and you see like a couple brief glances really quickly. But yeah, it was minor, but still, I just thought it was interesting to note, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, it says a lot about the movie.
Anyways, moving on to final scores, though. I can go first this time. And yeah, I mean, we covered it. I think out of all the films, I've enjoyed it the least that I've watched so far. Like, all the other ones have redeeming qualities, be it the characters, the way the story's told, furthering the story in some fashion, which this definitely did not do, other than Laurie's death, which I actually did not like how it was done. And just in general, like I said, there's not... In all of the films, there's at least some characters that I I enjoy, or you get more character moments that I can latch onto. There's none of that here, and yeah, so I am going with my first F grade for once, F plus. So that's where I'm at.
I agree. That's how I feel. I give it an F plus as well.
All right.
I think a lot of people are going to wonder is like, why did he give this a better review than Halloween 2? And my answer to that is just, despite how bad and boring the film is, it actually does have a better plot structure than Halloween 2. And it doesn't make me happy to say that. I take no joy in saying that. But Halloween 2 is so disjointed. Like it just changes perspectives over and over again. And so you never really know what's going to happen in the next scene. So you're bored with the expectation that you're going to stay bored because you have no idea what's going to happen. You go from Loomis to the nurses to Laurie to the nurses to Loomis. It's just, oh God, 2 was so hard. It's such a mess.
I'd like to. I believe I gave it a C plus or something like that, but I think it should be stated here, just in final thoughts here. You
Sure.
do grade things in a way that most people don't, and that's not a bad thing. I don't say that as a bad thing, but just to explain to people why you could give Halloween 2 an F or whatever, and then you give this an F plus, insinuating that it's just slightly higher. It's not that you think that. I guess my understanding of what I've noticed is, and what we talked about before, just when we weren't recording, is that the way I see it is Halloween 2 had a lot more potential to be great than this did. Like, Halloween 2 had a lot more potential, and it did not live up to that potential, so you're obviously going to grade it much harsher, whereas when you have something that was clearly a cash grab, it was crap, it was, a very weak premise to begin with, weak characters, everything. You don't have Loomis, you really don't have Laurie here beyond that one part, and just the continuation of that night. And you don't have John Carpenter attached, you don't have any of that, you don't have the great score. When you take all of that away, this one just didn't have nearly the same potential, so you're grading this a little bit softer because it wasn't as much of a disappointment for you. So I can get that. No. I can get that.
There's a little bit of that, but I honestly think 2 was harder to watch as well. I feel like the way, because I'm super ADD, right? So when they constantly change characters and settings like every 5 minutes, it was just a nightmare. It was just a very difficult movie for me to watch. So this movie, because it was coherent, I was able to follow it better. And I mean, I didn't hate some of the characters. I mean, other than Loomis and Laurie and kind of the sheriff, there's just, I didn't really like anybody in Halloween 2. And if the characters I do like, even Loomis, who I do like, I don't really like how they handled Loomis in 2. So, and I can't actually remember what I said that, but Loomis is just like fucking like crazy in 2. He's just off his rocker in that movie. Like waving guns at trick-or-treaters and shit.
But that's why it's good. I don't know. I mean, we can do maybe a sum up of everything. Yeah, a retrospective of the series once we've seen them all, and we can kind of briefly talk about.
That's a good idea. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
I mean, we'll definitely do that. But yeah, I would much rather watch 2. And that Ben Tramer scene with Crazy Loomis flailing his gun around at Ben Tramer as he walks across the street. I don't know. There's way better moments in 2 than I think here, and I'll take anything that John Carpenter had a hand in. Laurie is more prominent in, and anything with Donald Pleasance in over this. But that's me. Like I said, we will do a retrospective, and we'll get into more conversations like that. So we'll just do that as a little teaser. But
indeed.
On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in to our review discussion of Halloween Resurrection. That is all for the main series. Now we getting into the reboot, even though technically H2O was sort of like a reboot in a way, a continuation or a retcon or whatever. And then this is a continuation of that. So now we have next the Rob Zombie, the first Halloween film by Rob Zombie, where they reboot the franchise. So stay tuned for that as we get closer and closer to the new Halloween. On that note, take care, everybody. We will see you later.
Peace.
Oh yeah, one more thing.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.